What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the latest episode of the Team Building Podcast, where you learn how to build a dominant real estate team in your market. And we've got someone with us who has done it. We've got Dan Holt. They are the #1 KW team in the greater Heartland region. I'll let Dan share exactly what area that covers, and we're going to dive into some specifics. Jeff is unable to join us today, so he is out of town and in a location that is not conducive to him being on the show today. So I am rolling with it. We're going to have an awesome time, and we're going to talk about culture of productivity. We're going to talk about how to have more talent conversations in a year. We're going to talk about how to help your agents stay on track, get back on track when they get off, and really set them on a path to where they can earn more freedom, both in their life and within your business, the more that they respond to your culture and stay productive. So we've got a bunch of fun stuff. So without further ado, Dan, officially welcome.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we didn't hit this yet, so I do want to specify that I am dressed like this because it's Halloween today.
That's right.
Regardless of when you're watching this. So we don't dress like this all the time in the Midwest. And we do this.
Well, yeah, exactly. Maybe.
So, yeah, we are in the greater Heartland region. We're specifically in Springfield, Missouri. And with Keller Williams, the greater Heartland region is Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska. So we are, to the rest of the country, the flyover states, but we are Heartland of America. The heartbeat,
right?
Right?
God's country, exactly. It's God's country. So you're doing the Lord's work out in God's country.
The buckle of the Bible Belt.
Exactly. Okay. So give me an indication of what the team looks like right now. What's the structure and how many people?
So the team's been in existence, now for 6 years. There are 15 people on the team. We have 5 people in production, 2 specific. I'm less in production than I've ever been. We have 2 listing specialists. I have a lead buyer specialist, Jen Davis, and 2 showing assistants. To support that, I have 2 outbound callers, OSAs, and 1 inbound lead nurturer on the admin side, and then 6 generic admins from listing specialist. I'm sorry, not listing specialist, lead listing manager, closing manager, closing admin on the buy side, and a closing admin on the side.
That's interesting.
So we have 15 total, 5 in production, and we do about 500 transactions a year.
500 a year. Okay. Yeah, so that makes more sense. So, I mean, it's a little bit like initially you're looking at what was it, 6 support staff for 9 people. It sounds like it's a high ratio of support.
Higher support ratio because I'm very high productivity. We're averaging, and we always have averaged, 100 transactions per agent in production.
Yeah, which feeds into the conversation we're going to have on hiring. Yep. And why you're not essentially bringing on anybody who can fog a mirror, right. What the requirements are, what the recruiting pipeline looks like when you're looking for someone who can legitimately do 100 deals a year, because those are the only people you want to add to your team.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
Cool.
And that's part of our culture. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, let's get into it a little bit. And for those that, since you didn't specify, I have to point out that for those who are listening on iTunes or Stitcher, Dan looks like a lumberjack. And I don't mean like, oh, he threw on a flannel shirt. He legitimately looks exactly like a lumberjack because we actually are recording. This is October 31st, 2018. It is Halloween, and it's apparently Lumberjack Day in the office.
Yeah, well, we kind of did that, yeah. So I'm not the only lumberjack in the office. There's a lumberjen also.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so let's dive into the culture piece. So tell me a little bit about the rhythm of the week around the office. When are agents showing up? When are they expected to do? Okay. When are they expected to be there and not be there?
Yeah, well, the minimum expectation is that our agents are in the office during normal business office hours, with the exception of, obviously, we try to create days off. And I insist that my production agents have at minimum 1 day off per week, just because of how intense this business is. We all know that there's no true being off if you're in town in real estate, but there may not be appointments. So if people we know have evening appointments, we'll allow them to come in late, but there's a minimum expectation you're working 50 to 60 hours a week if you're on the production side. We all know what that's like. But as far as the heartbeat of what my agents aren't as heavy in lead generation. Because we do have the whole lead gen department. So we've got 4 people grinding on the phones all day long, and my production agents are just in production. We very much embrace the 80-20 principle, that 80% of results come from 20% of your activities. So my lead gen people just lead gen. My production people just produce real estate. Their job is to meet people face to face and convert them to writing a book of business with us. And so it's very specialized within even within the production. Our agents don't work both sides. I don't have, and clearly they're competent and capable of, and we won't refuse the business, yet the focus is you stay in your lane because our team goes further, faster together than when everybody's kind of cross-pollinating.
Yeah, yeah.
The jack of all trades makes no money.
So dive into the admin a little bit in terms of, so if the agents are focusing on being in production, but they're also they're not the only ones grinding on the phones, and their focus really is on appointment to sign contract and negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
When you say you have like a listing coordinator, for example, is the listing coordinator doing the client communication with the listings, or does that fall back on the agent?
Yep. No, I mean we have a plan for the agents to obviously communicate with them, but typically in my office on the listing side specifically, the only time you're going to hear from the agent is number one, during the initial listing presentation until that listing presentation is signed. Then the entire listing process is taken on by the listing office. As well as communicating feedback, showing, scheduling pictures, getting them live, etc. And then there's a systematic follow-up or just touch by the agent that took it. That's not as neat as it should be. And then obviously when an offer comes in and that's then presented and then the repairs are negotiated, that's really the only time they're talking to the agent. Other than that, the admin is proactively taking it. So where we've identified there's a problem is when they did the work and facilitated the transaction, but weren't communicating. We found that we've had to double communicate what was going on by that person. That person has to, you've heard the sell up of the relationship. That person has to take the relationship.
Yeah. That's one of the hardest part. If you're going to follow that model, one of the toughest parts is finding listing coordinators that are, let's say, high SC that also understand and can push the communication, because to them it feels like it's about 10 times the communication that they would like to do, when we're as salespeople, we're going, no, you got to talk to them every day. Call them, text them, email them, call them, text them, email them. It's very different for that personality type. So it's a rare person who can do it.
That's right. That's exactly right. It was a tough challenge for us to fit.
Yeah. Okay. So cultural productivity. So your agents are expected to do about 100 deals a year a piece. So you keep the production side small. They've got all the support staff they need. They've got all the marketing support. They've got OSAs, ISAs, all that good stuff. So what are their expectations if they're not rolling into the office with 3 hours of calls to make and expected to hit a certain number of outbound contacts and things like that because they've got people doing some of that for them? When you say agents get off track and you have to get them back on track, what does that actually look like?
Okay, so back to the expectation. The minimum expectation to stay on our team is that you're doing 6 deals per week. I'm sorry, per month. Wow. So the minimum expectation is 75. Now, we help everybody hit higher than that, which is how we hit the numbers that we hit, but that's the minimum expectation. And the way we keep that on track is through a weekly goal accountability meeting, and we call it the 411. Which is we're taking their 1 year goal, we're breaking it down to 1 month, and we're breaking it down to 4 weeks and a month. And so we're having this conversation, and the conversation is very simple. Are you on goal? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, they're on goal. It's their 15 minutes to talk about whatever they want to talk about in their business, in their personal life, whatever they want to. It's their 15 minutes to be able to talk to their direct report within our office. Everybody does this. However, if they're behind goal, we have, and I've been working this with my coach, a 1-minute protocol. The minute that you're behind goal, there's an activity. Listen, this is what you do, and it's a protocol. When you're behind goal, you jump in, and it's essentially doubling the activities that we know drive the results that we're seeking in real estate, getting them back on goal. If by the next weekly meeting, they're still behind goal or further behind goal, there's then level 2 of here's the action plan. And it's ramping up a lot of activities to get them back on goal. Now, one of the reasons we do that is because when we bring somebody on the team, we've taken a vested interest in seeing them succeed. And we can't want it more for them than they want it for themselves. And yet we've been charged with being their leaders and ensuring that we do what we can to help them hit goal. And absent accountability, people will let themselves slip. into being behind goal and never self-correcting. So we feel it's our goal to keep them on goal because that's what helps them hit the monetary goals at the end of the year that they've set. And so that's our job as their leaders.
Yeah. Love it. And I want to get into lead gen pillars in a second because I think it'll help tie some things together. But just a quick comment about helping people hit that foundation, that floor, making performance and making hitting the goals a floor that you don't drop below. I don't hear very many other people talk about it. One of the only ones I've heard talk about it is my own business coach, and he comes out of the executive recruiting industry, which is just another form of sales. And that's what he taught all of his clients to do. And most people approach goal setting the opposite way, which is to set them so high that any action you take towards it just kind of gets counted as good. Right. But if you don't set a floor, if you don't set a minimum expectation and a foundation that you commit to never drop below, then you're right. People eventually get off track and they don't really even acknowledge that they are getting off track. Therefore they never self-correct.
That's right. And so, when we think of this, one of the areas we've had success with is, and this could be a philosophical debate that would take up a whole other call. It is hiring. We hire outside. We don't specifically do this, and everybody we put in production, we've hired outside of industry. Because what we have found is that they have no preconceived perceptions of what they can or what they can't do. If I just walked in my market center and said, hey, if you'll listen to me and do what I say every week, you'll hit 100 deals per year, I would say that 80% of them wouldn't believe me, even though they've seen me do it time and time and time again with people. Because they already have people outside of industry don't know what the industry thinks they can and can't do. So we just give them the roadmap, they follow the activities, and they find success. And then they never deviate.
And have you noticed any commonalities in terms of what other industries you like to hire from?
Oh, I'll tell you the fast path. The only industry that I've seen, and we have had success with this, the only industry that I have seen that naturally any sales industry typically is the same personality. But if you can hire for the pharmaceutical sales industry, that's the only industry that I see that does as much extensive personality, background testing, I guess, if you will, or analyzation as us. They are very typically are high I, high D, high D, high I. They're driven to the results. I mean, if you can find, that industry, I'll grab them up every time. Because if they made it into that industry, they pass a lot of tests and beat a lot of people. They were the cream of the crop in that industry typically.
Love it. That was a fantastic tip. I've always been curious about that, and I haven't. There's not enough other agents hiring people from outside the industry that have that nailed down. There's a few, but not very many that really focus on it. So that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about what are the lead gen pillars that you guys' team kind of sits on.
Obviously, repeat and referral business. We are doing a better job. Keep in mind, our team's only 6 years old, so our repeat business isn't huge because if the average tenancy was 7 years, we would starve to death on repeat business. So repeat. I'm lumping repeat and referral together. For sale by owners and expireds, which has been a pivotal, I came into business with no business. So that was 6 years ago, a very easy place for us to skim really fast business. However, that's tougher now, right? It's getting a little easier as the market shifts, but that's been a harder space. And then we still do some old school door knocking. Everything that we do is door knocking. But I would say repeat referral, expireds for sale by owners is still our number one lead generation for a listing source.
Nice. Now, what did you mean by really everything we do is door knocking? That was a casual offhand comment.
Well, no, not everything we do is door knocking. Everything we do is simple and not flashy. I have gone through this as I think any newer real estate agent does, or maybe any real estate agent anywhere. We're always looking. I feel like I keep correcting myself because I don't want to paint anybody into a box.
Yeah.
We always look for the easy button or that magic wand or the silver bullet of real estate. And there's just not one. And all those things typically cost money. And there are loads of leads that you can generate without costing any money. So let's go back to the conversation we had before on the goal setting. When they're behind goal, all the activities that we expect them to do is an investment of time, not of money. It's just activities. So that's what our business really is surrounded, rather than being reactive. If we're behind goal, and we're not just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, specifically on the buy side, because we know that can be typically a reactive side to be on, we're going to go out and find them. So, I used to have a runner that put all our signs up and took them down, et cetera. Well, it was just an hourly role. Now all my listing specialists take them out and they door knock 5 doors around when they put the sign up. When they take the sign down, they door knock 5. It's just a new expectation we've set. Obviously, it helps profitability because I'm not paying somebody else to do it, and it's creating an activity that drives results.
Interesting. I like that. That's a good tip. Okay, so let's talk about systematic hiring. Now that we know kind of what their expectation is, we know what kind of people you're looking for. So how are you finding them, and how are you having the conversations?
Okay, so finding them is always the challenge, right? However, with my leaders, what I've done is in their weekly accountability meeting, in addition to the metrics that are specific to their role, we have put in place measures for talent conversations. So, just like real estate, we have the normal lead generation sources for talent because obviously as your business grows, you can only grow so far with X amount of people. So at some point in time, you either have to grow more people or grow a better level of talent. Mm-hmm. So the same lead generation sources, internet lead generation, right? So the typical LinkedIn, Indeed, that kind of stuff, you'll be able to sort. We have found certain sites provide a better caliber of talent. We put it out there on our Facebook sites, our personal sites, as well as just putting it out there in the world, making sure that we're talking to everybody, just like we would for a listing or for a buyer or seller. Do you know anybody that has an interest in real estate? Well, who doesn't know somebody that has an interest in real estate, right? So it allows that conversation, and then I'm able to then follow up with that. But the minimum expectation is that we at least have 2 talent, we being the leaders, I mean. So the top 4 people in our organization, that we're having 2 talent conversations per week. And the goal is to KPA 1 person per week, which is a personality profile test that we use at Keller Williams. So it allows us to really quick identify, are we or are we not talking to talent? And we have found that through each of us talking to 100 people, we can find 1 really talented person in that 100 people. So if I have 4 people doing that, now I have 400 talent conversations happening every year. And our goal is to find 4 really talented people in that, because we can't go where we're going with just average or mediocre. We can hire average and mediocre anywhere we want to, right? But exceptional talent is what I'm talking about. People that can do 100 to 150 transactions a year, that's talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keeps it small, keeps it lean, mean, profitable, and probably fun to run.
Another thing, I'm not hanging on this, but our average sales price on our market is $170,000. I don't have the luxury. Sometimes an uptrending market or a really high average sales price can allow a person to make more mistakes because the income covers up the mistakes. I don't have that luxury.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so there's a couple of other questions I want to ask you about, but I would just want a couple things first. So 300 to 400 talent conversations per year. So 4 people, 100 conversations each with the goal is only to bring in 4 people. You literally only want to grow and add 1 person, essentially 1 new person a quarter.
Yeah.
That's right. So with that kind of like very slow, very intentional, very specific kind of addition, you don't have like a training person. You don't have, I'm assuming, a huge whole curriculum that you're able to build out. So when you bring on somebody and they're expected to really hit the ground running and perform, what's that process like when they join your team?
So we do have a 30, 60, 90 action plan for every person we brought in. Their direct person of report is obviously the person for the role or the side they're going to, be it the buy side, the list side, the lead gen side, or the admin side. They do have a direct report, and then we have a 30, 60, 90. So and we have permission that we're dating for 90 days. We're not married to each other yet. At 90 days, it's all. I'll tell you this too. With a true KPA process, the only times I've made a poor hire that I had made was when I know I shortcutted the system. When I follow the system, I know exactly who I'm getting into business with, right? Mm-hmm. And every time I fail, I look back and see where I shortcutted it, and then you learn from that. But through that, I typically know exactly who I'm getting into business with, and then we have an action plan of 30, 60, 90. So at 30 days, we're reviewing, and there's a checklist. These are the things that we know. I think too many people potentially bring people and they're like, here's the problem, fix it. Or hey, go sell some houses. We have a 90-day training process before you're up and running because those are our clients. We care for them that much, and we care for their success. And when people have failed within our organization is when we also shortcutted that system. And we can typically go backwards, document, and identify where did we let them down. I think sometimes us as leaders or rainmakers or whatever terminology you want to use, I don't think we take the level of severity to bringing people into our organization. I don't think we treat it as that big of a responsibility. It's kind of like a, hey, here it is if you want it, get it. When I'm going into a relationship with somebody, I'm going to a relationship with them. I'm going to a relationship with their significant other, their children, if any. I'm taking on their bills. I have a responsibility to make them succeed.
Yeah.
Also, they're occupying a footprint in my business that that somebody else could be missing, right? Like they've got to perform. I don't know. That's a little bit philosophical. I don't know that I hit my point there, but it's just we're taking on somebody's livelihood and their family's livelihood.
Yeah. No, it's really good. There was I read a book not that long ago where he said something to the effect of the day we stop losing sleep over our own business and start losing sleep over our clients is the day everything changes in our business.
That's right.
And I think as leaders, that's really where we make the shift, is a couple things, taking on the responsibility of our client's success and making sure that the people on our team care about it as much as we do, which is tough, but it's a leadership responsibility.
It's a very hard shift. And I'll tell you, it's one of the glass ceilings that I've hit. And one of the mindset things that has had to shift for me really hard lately, and Jen has said this, and I'm finally hearing her right, Jen's on my team, I'm sorry, is that my leaders are now my clients.
Yes.
My home buyers and sellers are our team's clients.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 or 5 clients. I can only deeply affect 4 to 5 relationships in my world. And that's typically true of most people if I'm going to deeply affect them. I can superficially talk to 100 people. I can only change the lives of 5 immediate people and challenge them to change the lives of 5 people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's another thing we can potentially get into. A pitfall there is having too many people report directly to us, especially as the teams grow. Because you're right, you really only have enough mental bandwidth. Like there's some scientific debate over whether it's 4 or 7 or where in between there is, and there's studies to back up each one of them. But yeah, if you look at the most successful CEOs of massive corporations, they don't have any more than 4 to 7 direct reports. That's right. Literally all, and they're managing worldwide organizations, and the same thing applies to us. So I like that a lot. Let's take a step back and tell people kind of we've talked about the area that you guys cover. Let us know how you can how to connect with you, how to send referrals to you, and then I've got a couple more questions for you. We'll close.
Sure. Perfect. So yeah, we're in Springfield, Missouri, which is we're just north of Branson, southwest Missouri. And our you can email me direct. It's Dan Holt Homes, HOMES @gmail.com, and office number 417-447-2782.
Awesome. And then Jeff wants me to remind everyone to go to eliterealestatesystems.com. Click on events. That's where all the workshops, the upcoming workshops are listed. There's a regional workshop January 15th and 16th in Miami. So everybody can go ahead and check that out. So if you don't want to get on a plane and come to the beautiful and scenic Midwest when there's a foot of snow on the ground, Jeff's got you covered. Go hang out with him and his team in Miami. It's all the same content, so it's like 12 hours of masterminding and content, and you walk away with all the intellectual property, all the systems, tools, checklist, all the good stuff that comes with the regular workshop where you normally have to go to Jeff's office. In this case, you can go to a luxury resort in Miami and get all the same stuff. So it's a lot more fun. So go check that out at eliterealestatesystems.com. So final couple questions. You said it's been about a 7-year journey. Mm-hmm. You started off, just jumping right in. FSBOs expires, and then you built your team from there and really followed the MREA model pretty closely.
Sure.
Looking back on all that stuff now, if you were starting over in this market, is there anything you would do to either lay a better foundation, or is there anything you would have done that would have made you grow faster?
Yeah. A couple things. Number one, if I were going to do anything differently, I look back also on the tip I would give, especially if you're growing. The first one is understand the 4 models in depth and know them: the lead generation model, the organizational model. I'm going to stump myself now. I'm sorry. Help me out here. Lead gen, organizational model, the budget model, and the economic model.
Economic model. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Sorry.
Lord.
Yeah, that's it. Trust me. And it's just understanding that through my favorite two are the economic model and the organizational model, because the organizational model helps you understand who to put in your world and when to put them in. And the economic helps you understand when to put them in. So just understanding very in depth, clarifying what my one thing is. I think people come in and they see 10 things to look at. If I had come in and understood the clarity, my only job when I come in Monday morning at 8 a.m. is to lead generate for a listing appointment. And I say the whole thing because people get caught up with buyers are instant. It's 30-day paycheck. If I would have lead generated for listing appointments with the ferocity that our team does now, I would have gone where I wanted to go faster. We get too distracted with other things. Lead generate for listing appointment is always the winner. That's always the answer. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what role you're in. Lead generate for listing appointments. They control. You control the listing appointments. You control the market share, right? And hiring according to the organizational model, the KW book, the organizational model. Every time I talk to anybody, and I'm not going to say you can't deviate from it and have success, but the fastest path from A to Z is a straight line. And every time I've gone against it and thought I was smarter or I knew it didn't work, and I had to let somebody go, and it was a failure to me and a failure to them, and I let them down. So there may be other ways that work, and other people have done it differently, and that way works every time.
Yeah. Well, it's like it shows up in any form of mastery, really. You got to know the rules before you break them, and you can't break them intelligently until you know them. So it makes sense.
That's right.
Yeah, I was talking to Jay Papasan about this, the co-author of all of Gary's books here a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that he's like, look, like the one thing, it's like that book came out of me just watching what Gary did and just trying to pull it out of his head. He's like, this is the stuff that he does naturally. He says we could have easily come out with that book before we came out with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. He's like, I don't know that would have been the best thing tactically. But he said that concept, that the one thing concepts have been so buried in Gary's way of doing business for so many years that actually the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book and the economic model, everything that was built on is actually built on the concept of the one thing. So that makes total sense.
And to add to it, it kind of goes back to what I said before. We get distracted. There's flashy objects. If we just understood that our success will come faster by just doing our one thing, which is lead generate for listing appointments, and if we understood the severity of that's all I have to do, and I have to do that over and over by anybody else, it's the same thing. It's the problem with it is it's not exciting, it's not sexy, it's not flashy, but it's just consistent, predictable, and sustainable.
That's right. Well, and it's once you move up to the next level, it's the exact same thing. The recruiting challenge is the exact same thing.
It never changes, really, right? Does it?
Yeah, it's all just prospecting for relationships. All right, Dan, this was a blast. So people should check you out. You've got all of your contact info. We'll make sure that all that stuff is in the show notes. People should send you referrals into your area, Springfield, Missouri, and surrounding environs. And I just want to say real quick to everybody that's listening, make sure to go leave us a review. We're trying to get to triple-digit reviews by the end of the year. And when you leave a review, whether it's Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever, give Dan a shout-out. So whoever guest episode you really got a lot out of, give them a shout-out publicly in your review just to thank them for their time and their contribution. So with that said, Dan, super awesome conversation. Thanks everybody for listening. Yeah, absolutely.